Hi everyone, I'm Mel and welcome to ThriverTV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. So today's episode is about the greatest flawed premise in regard to recovery. And it's one word, and that word is blame. And the reason I'm doing this video is because I had a comment on one of my recent videos from a psychologist in regard to my orientation of the Thriver orientation of healing from the inside out. And she said, Melanie, why are you blaming and shaming victims or something along those lines? And, once upon a time, I might have thought like this, but nowadays, this really, really astounds me. And this is what I want to cover off in this episode, all about blame. And, the truth is, as a human construct, when things go wrong in our life, what we want to do is we want to put some blame somewhere. We want to say, well, my life is like this because of this situation or this person. Now, just to make this really simple and an example for you, if I was to say to you that my life today is absolute rubbish because of you, well, obviously what that means is that my life today can't get any better unless you fix it for me. Now, isn't this really quite screwy? Because I have a worldwide of possibilities and opportunities and orientations, and I have a worldwide of my inner landscape to choose from of emotions and states. So why have I made my entire existence dependent on you? And haven't I just handed my power over by blaming you for my day? So that's a really simple example, but I want to take this journey a bit deeper in regard to blame. I want you to imagine if you were to see or know of a 3-year-old child that's getting abused, and would you have compassion for that child, knowing that they're being abused by a caretaker? Absolutely, 100% you would have compassion for that child. And you'd probably be incensed that this is happening to this innocent, defenseless child. Now, what would happen if you were to fast forward 30 years and you were to see that this child has become an abuser? Someone who is acting pathologically, who has incredible defense mechanisms, who reacts in ways that do not match what's going on in their reality. Would you still have compassion for that child who's become an adult, or will you start labeling them as an abuser? And what if that abuser was actually abusing you? Does that mean you've thrown all compassion out the window? And that you're really personalizing it, you're taking it very personal, that this is a personal attack, that this person is purposely going out of their way to abuse me and to hurt me and to make my life a living hell. Isn't that how most of us have felt, or maybe are still feeling? But really, isn't it the truth of the matter that everybody is acting in a way which means they're thinking and feeling and behaving in a way that matches the condition of their inner landscape, of their emotional development? So really what that is saying is, how much inner trauma do they have, as opposed to how free are they of inner trauma? Because the truth of the matter is that everybody's brain and the way that they think and they process information is organizing around the state of their inner being, of their inner landscape. Now, we're all disconnected, and I talked about that in another one of my YouTubes. We've all been disconnected from self-partnering, which means that rather than being partnered healthily in our body with self-soothing and unconditional love, which means that the state of myself is not determined by things that are or aren't happening outside of me. I'm a generative source of my own love, approval, worth, security, and survival, not precariously positioned on the outside world. Now, if we're not that, we're in post-traumatic stress disorder. which means that we're maladapting trying to survive with survival programs that are defenses and fears. And absolutely, this is the portrait of abusers. This is why they act the way they do. So are we still going to blame them for the state of what's happened in our life when really they were defenseless children brought up with subconscious programs that weren't healthy to them? And the reality was that, as every single child was, we were all voracious, downloading computers, which means we're in theta brainwave, open to all information up to the age of primarily 7 to 8, even to 12, where we're accepting every message as true. Now, because we didn't have an adult, logical, cognitive developed mind, we didn't have a filter to say, well, Mum, your rage episode is actually not about me. It's about your unhealed traumas in your body that have never been faced and healed. And this is why you project and rage. But as a 2 or a 3 or a 5-year-old, that rage is very personal. And what the belief is that forms inside of us is, well, I'm not worthy of love, or the people that love me hurt me, or I'm not acceptable as I am. And that's what we take on and we create in adulthood. And abusers absolutely have taken on some very, very powerful subconscious messages, which are causing them to maladapt in ways that, given their inner emotional state, is right for them. So as soon as we get into blame, we say things are wrong. We want to pin blame, and we don't want to take blame because we say, well, we're terrified of that. This isn't my fault. This isn't my fault. It must have been your fault. This is the way that's why my life is like this. So we're labeling, we're judging, and we're into some really unhealthy territory. Because as soon as we are blaming, actually, I'll explain it to you this way. As soon as we are blaming ourselves for something, and we're shaming and blaming ourselves, we're withholding love from ourselves. When we're blaming and shaming anybody else, we are also not connected to loving and healing ourselves and getting better. We're disconnected from well-being every time we blame and shame. And if we were to do a muscle test and understand body chi, and I really invite you to look this up and try it out with somebody else, that if you were saying a blaming and shaming comment to yourself, your arm will not hold in a muscle test. And what that is saying is that your nervous system, your emotional composition, even the state of the cells in your body in relation to how much oxygen and nutrients that they can absorb in any given moment. When your body chi is going down, it is saying rather than evolving, you are dissolving. Okay, so rather than integrating, you are disintegrating. So your whole system is spiraling downwards into disintegration as soon as we are doing shame and blame. Now, the interesting thing is, if you were to shame and blame somebody else on a logical, human, very disconnected level, you could say, well, this isn't about me, so this is displacing my blame. It's making me feel better. It's actually an ego hit. It's a really short-term solution with very long-term destructive consequences. So you might feel better in the moment. You're appeasing your ego by saying, well, this is not my fault. It's got to be your fault. But then what happens is your inner being is quantum. It's timeless. It has no time-space definitions, therefore it has no separation. Your inner being knows no difference between that person outside of you and yourself. And a muscle test shows you that if I blame and shame somebody else for the state of my life, then my body chi still collapses. I am still dissolving. I am still disintegrating because I am not being well-being. I'm not being God. I'm in wrong town. I'm not being love. Okay, love recognizes that there is no one to blame. Love recognizes in Thriver orientation, there is no one to blame. Okay, so who were we going to blame? We're going to blame the abuser. Or were we going to blame their parents? They were unconscious. They didn't know any better. Are we going to blame their parents? They were unconscious. They didn't know any better. They didn't understand how to work with a child's subconscious and program it in healthy ways. Nobody taught us this. This knowledge has been gone for thousands of years in the disconnection. Okay, so we're going to blame God, or we're going to blame the devil. But you know what? It doesn't matter who we're blaming. In amongst every choice, our body cue is still dissolving and disintegrating and taking us further away from integration and God and love and truth and authenticity and wholesomeness and well-being every single time we blame. And this is what is happening in abuse forums en masse, is this level of blaming. And I remember in the early days when I got involved in some of those outer abuse forums, and I would talk to them about the Thriver orientation and personal radical responsibility, and it would be like an atomic bomb had gone off, you know, with the way that victims would attack. And I feel for all of you, I really do. I've been there, but I want you to know that blaming and shaming, if you're blaming, you are in wrong town. You're in wrong town. And the really interesting thing about, you know, we think that blaming somebody for our state is going to help us get better. The evidence is everywhere that it doesn't work. Just go onto abuse forums and see. It's not working. And if we are self-partnered, we know it feels like rubbish in our body because our whole inner being is getting torn down with that blame. What is so much more appropriate is this type of orientation. And we have to do the inner work to get there, absolutely. The orientation of, I have incredible compassion for the unconsciousness that has happened to abusers and people abused. And I feel so much for the plight of this planet of where it has been, with the dire unconsciousness that has gone on, with the fact that we've all been separated and put in our heads and tried to survive with defense mechanisms, not come home into our body to self-soothe, to be a generative source of our own welfare. And all of us trained to look outside of us and say, well, you know, I don't feel at peace in my body. I've got a highly energized nervous system. I've got PTSD because I don't feel whole. I don't have organic well-being. So therefore, I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, you have to fix my life. Through you, hopefully, I can get my love, my approval, my well-being, my life, my purpose, my security, my survival. All of those things that we're not partnering directly with ourselves and life through ourselves. We hold people responsible. And this is all part of the blame model. And then what happens is when they don't deliver the goods, when they actually deliver more of our emptiness, rather than be the solution to our emptiness, then we blame them for not getting it right and not granting us all of those things. And that's the blame model. And it keeps us powerless and it keeps us handing our life over and our power over. And it keeps people turning up in our experience, which are really reflecting back to us all of our judgments, all of our shame, all of our blame, all of our disconnection, everything that is not God, that is not love. That's what these people are showing us. That's actually God showing up to us, showing us where we're not self-partnered. And there's all a reason for this. So I hope that that's helped. I'm pretty passionate about this topic because it changes everything. And as I said at the start of this episode, blame is the number one flawed premise of recovery. That either, you know, don't tell me I'm to blame, you know, or I've got to blame the narcissist because they're evil, horrible, disgusting people that don't give a crap about anybody else. That's what we're blaming them for. The total awareness is, okay, you did what you did because you're unconscious. You're not prepared to heal your inner traumas. You're not going to become conscious. I know you're not, so I'm going to leave you alone. But what I'm going to do is take 100% personal responsibility for my unconscious stuff that I can heal so that I can get out of this whole cycle of abused. I can become a self-generative force. I can become love, which feels wonderful in my body rather than toxic emotions. And love doesn't mean I'm going to be a pushover at all. In fact, we're pushovers when we're blaming and shaming and we're still stuck in those toxic emotions and paradigms because we're always attracting and meeting in life exactly where we're at. And when we're love, we show up authentically, we lay boundaries, we tell the truth. We listen to our body, we're self-partnered, we trust our intuition and our cues, we speak up, we ask questions. And we are no longer empty and needy for somebody else to give us ourselves. It's very easy to let things go that aren't our reality and aren't our truth and aren't matching us on a wholesome vibration. So I hope that's really helped. And if you are enjoying these videos, what I would love you to do is subscribe to my channel. Also, please comment, because this really helps the Thriver revolution get legs. Okay, so that we can help spread the awareness that there is a much better way to heal from abuse. And also too, if you haven't yet subscribed to my free newsletter, you can do that and get your Get Started pack, which has a ton of resources and all of the updates and notifications of my upcoming radio shows and articles and YouTube videos. And I would also love you too to join me in one of my 3 keys to thriving after narcissistic abuse webinar. I've just released a brand new one, and you can come into that and learn all about the Thriver orientation and how to turn your life around in a matter of days. Because I promise you it does. It really does. So that's it for me. To the next video, and keep smiling and keep thriving, because there is nothing else to do.